Good morning, friend. I hope your day is going great. It's July 5th already, believe it or not. Hope you had an amazing Independence Day. If you live in the United States, yesterday was holiday for us where we celebrate our American independence. And I think it was a great day. It was beautiful weather. We got a lot done in the yard and around the house, and just kind of took care of some business yesterday. And today's going to be a great day too. It's a holiday, Monday. And because the typical holiday fell on a weekend, then people also get a holiday on Monday here. So going to have an opportunity to get some stuff done with my darling today. And so I hope you do too. I hope you're with some family or friends, and that wherever you are, things are going great. We're praying for you. I heard an old song recently. I probably shared this with you before, but a few years ago I made kind of a conscious decision that I was going to mostly listen to Christian music. I don't listen to secular music very often anymore, and that came about kind of organically because we were leading worship and we were always around worship music and playing and singing together. And so that was already sort of the bulk of our canon of stuff that we listened to was already Christian music. But then several years ago, I heard Chris Hodges, who is our pastor at Church of the Highlands in Alabama back in the day. I heard him preach a sermon about how God had designed music as a means of worshiping Him, of us worshiping Him. And He designed our bodies as musical instruments. We can clap, we can sing, we can hum, we can do percussion. We basically can create music. And in heaven, that's what we're going to do. We're going to worship Him. And so music was designed for the purpose of worshiping God. And when we use it for other purposes, look at what happens when people begin to honor themselves with their musical gifts. Look at what happens. And you look at secular music, and there's so much out there about, sex and drugs and money and self-glorification and the idolatry of earthly things and all of that. So you have to work pretty hard in secular music to find lyrics that don't lead you away from the Lord, right? And so anyway, that's a long story to say this, that I don't often listen to secular music anymore, but as a musician, as somebody who appreciates great music and musicians, I often will get on YouTube and look at guitar players and try to learn new things and all of that. And there's a guitar player named Joey Landreth who is phenomenal. In fact, he did something that I think is amazing. He heard music in his head when he was learning to play the guitar. He heard music in his head that he couldn't find on the guitar. And so he started turning the tuning knobs until he figured out a tuning, which turned out to be Open C, which he didn't invent, but he discovered on his own. Open C tuning. He discovered a tuning that allowed him to find the notes that he could hear in his head about music he didn't yet know how to play. And so that's a little aside, but it's a great story about don't let the limitations of life or technology or anything that's being presented to you. If you've got a song in your heart, or you've got a story to tell, or you've got an invention out there to invent, or some innovation or some thought or some new thing in your head and the world isn't giving it to you, maybe that's the Holy Spirit calling you to do something new, and you are the one that's supposed to bring that thing to all of us. Like Tesla, like electric cars, if the thing that you want isn't out there, the thing that you feel like you're being called to isn't out there, start turning those tuning knobs until you find the music that you can already hear in your head. And this is a great story. Anyway, so I was watching Joey Landreth, and he has a band with his brother, who's a bass player, and two other guys, Ariel Posner and a drummer. And they have a band called the Brothers Landreth. And one of their songs is called Jesus on the Mainline. And I listened to it. It's a great blues song. And it sounded a little familiar, so I did some research and figured out that was an old Ralph Stanley song, an old bluegrass song from way back in the day. Jesus on the Mainline, tell him what you want. Jesus on the Mainline, tell him what you want. As if you were on the phone with Jesus and you could just tell him what you want. It's been covered by the Gaithers. It's been covered by Randy Travis and Cooder and lots of other people. And so I spent a little time kind of going through all the different versions of this song. And so first, it sounds a little silly. It's like you're on the phone with Jesus, and the lyrics go like, Jesus on the Mainline, tell him what you want. You can call him up and tell him what you want. If you're sick and can't get well, tell him what you want. If your soul needs to be healed, tell him what you want. It just goes on and on. Jesus on the Mainline, tell him what you want. And I started thinking, that sounds a little bit like the prosperity gospel, like they're just saying, hey, call Jesus up and give him your laundry list of stuff that you want, and he'll give it to you. And that, of course, isn't scriptural. And I was kind of like, well, it's a great song, but not very theologically sound. But then something funny happened. As I was thinking about that, kind of brewing over it in the middle of the night, as sometimes often happens, it seems like with me, Lord just gave me a little nudge back to an old story in the Bible, and I read that, and it kind of brought together the idea that this song is not actually as superficial and silly as it might seem. So we're going to talk today a little bit about what in the world would happen if you could pick up the phone and get Jesus on the main line and tell him what you want, and we're going to start today. Hey, I'm so glad to have you listening. I'm Dr. Lee Warren. I live in Nebraska in the United States of America with my incredible wife, Lisa Warren, and the super pups, Harvey and Lewis. Harvey got almost tangled up with a bald eagle yesterday. That's another story, but that guy's out there. I'm a neurosurgeon and an author, and I'm here to help you harness neuroscience, the power of your brain, faith, the power of your spirit, and good old common sense to help you lead a healthier, better, happier life. Listen, friend, you can't change your life until you change your mind, and I'm here to help you learn the art of self-brain surgery. To get that done, you can get the show notes and more on my website, wleewarrenmd.com. And if you like the show, please subscribe so you never miss an episode, and tell your friends about it. If you told 2 or 3 friends this podcast was helpful to you, imagine how far we could go. Hey, I'm Dr. Lee Warren, here to help you change your mind so we can change our lives. Let's get after it. Okay, I want to go straight to a story in Luke 18. This is the story I was nudged towards the other night. Jesus is walking. Here's the setup. Jesus and his guys are walking towards Jericho. Okay, they're on the road. They're on a mission. They're moving from one place to another. They got stuff to do. It's Luke 18, starting in 35. And I always think about Jesus. If he wanted to, he could have been like John Travolta in that opening scene of Staying Alive. The Bee Gees music is playing, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, and you got John Travolta strolling down the street in his bell bottoms, and he's like shooting his fingers from side to side and acknowledging people. And Jesus could have done that. He could have been this guy that just rolled through town like, oh, there's a deaf guy, boom, you're healed. There's a woman with bleeding, boom, she's healed. He could have just shot these miracles out all over the place and been this cool guy and a folk hero and all of that. He could have been like a self-promoting guy in bell bottoms, wandering around healing people like little magic tricks, right? But that's not what he was doing. Jesus is approaching Jericho. He's walking, and Luke says it this way. As Jesus approached Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the roadside begging. And when he heard the crowd going by, he asked what was happening. And they told him, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. And he called out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And those who led the way rebuked him and told him to be quiet. But he shouted all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stopped and ordered the man to be brought to him. And when he came near, Jesus asked him, what do you want me to do for you? Lord, I want to see, he replied. Jesus said to him, receive your sight. Your faith has healed you. Immediately, he received his sight and followed Jesus, praising God. When all the people saw it, they also praised God. Now, there's 2 things happening here. This is important, okay? Jesus isn't just wandering through shooting miracles at everybody and rolling on. He's not too important to stop and notice when somebody says, have mercy on me. The blind man is so desperate, he doesn't even know what to say other than have mercy. He's run out of words. He's been begging so long, he doesn't even have any real hope. He's just asking for a little mercy. Just notice me. And sometimes that's all we've got, right? I can tell you in the days after losing Mitch, I didn't have a lot of specific requests. I just wanted it to stop hurting so much. I just needed some mercy. But Jesus, who knows everything, could have just shot some power over there. He could have, there's a blind guy. You're healed, right? Da-da-da-da-da. He could have just rolled on. But he didn't. He could have healed that guy without breaking his stride, but he doesn't. He stops. He has the man brought to him, puts his hands on him, looks in his eyes, he bends down and asks the question. He gives the man dignity. He gives the man agency over his own issues. He gives the man the gift of being noticed. And then he says, what do you want? This man right now has Jesus on the main line. He's looking him in the eyes. I'm looking across the room at the picture, Prince of Peace, a picture of Jesus that the artist named Akiyoti painted when she was 8 years old. And Jesus is looking right in my eyes across the room where Lisa hung that picture. And Jesus is on the main line right here, and he's saying, what do you want me to do for you? Now, here's the thing. That request comes with responsibility. I used to think this was so obvious. I used to think it was such a silly thing. Like, obviously, Jesus, he just wants to see. Why did you make a big deal out of asking him? Like, he could have just made him healed, right? He could have just done it. Didn't have to ask. He already knew. But I read an article that refined my thinking about this from a guy, I don't know him, Mark Woods. Not a lot about him out there on the internet. He's a pastor. He wrote an article in 2017 on a blog called Christian Today, not Christianity Today, but Christian Today, and I'll put a link in the show notes. And the blog was called, Why Did Jesus Ask a Blind Man If He Wanted Healing? And Mark Woods in this article made three really great points. Number one, Jesus is modeling ministry to us. But we should never assume, if you're a pastor, if you're a teacher, if you're a doctor, if you're just a good person, if you're relating to your family or friends, we should never assume that we know what people need. We should give them the power to express themselves. Say, hey, tell me what you need. What's hurt? Lisa, sometimes I'll think I know what she needs, and I'll just try to solve a problem for her, fix it for her. And sometimes she gets frustrated with me, and she just says, what I really needed is just to talk to you about it. I didn't need you to go to all these great lengths to try to solve it. I'm smart enough to solve it myself. I need you to be my friend here. And so Jesus is modeling a really important aspect of ministry to us, that we don't assume that we know. We just ask people to express themselves and give them respect of naming their own needs. And the second thing is, I never thought about this. This guy had a lot at stake. Assuming he had been blind his whole life, he probably didn't have a trade or a skill that he could use to employ himself. And in the Jewish culture of that day, if you were disabled or blind or lame, it was a cultural mandate that people had to give alms to those people. That's why he was begging, because a faithful Jew would be required to take care of this guy financially. So his community supported him. He was not in need. He didn't need shelter. He didn't need food. He did have to beg for it, but he got it. So he was taken care of. But if he were healed all of a sudden, he doesn't have a job anymore. Nobody's going to walk by and say, oh, you can see, I'm not giving you money now. You got to go take care of yourself. Right? So there was risk to this man getting something from Jesus. There was some danger here to him. And so asking for sight wasn't just a simple thing, open my eyes. It was going to come with some trouble. It was going to come with some responsibility. And so he did ask, but that was a big ask. Not just can you heal me, but am I going to be okay if you do? And the last one is the word that Jesus used for when he said, your faith has made you healed. Your faith has healed you. It's the same Greek word that would mean to be saved or to be perfected. The word is sozo. Jesus didn't just heal the man's eyes. He healed the man's whole life. He saved him. He perfected him. He saved him. And he says, your faith is what did that. And so it could be that it came with the knowledge of how to earn a living, with an ability to take care of himself. It could be something other than just the spiritual notion that we have of he gave him eternal life, which of course he did. But it was bigger than that. It's like, I'm not just going to heal your eyes. I'm going to heal your whole life. That's the connotation of that word sozo in that context. From the interlinear Hebrew Bible, where I looked this up, the word sozo, effectively, is the third person single form of the verb marked similar. Its tense is perfect, which indicates a present tense report of an action that has already been completed. So when he says, your faith has healed you, he's saying, I've already saved you, dude. You got your eyesight back, but I've already taken care of everything else too. It's done. It's the effects of this present tense report are in the now. Like he has done this thing already. Its voice is active, which indicates that the subject performs the action instead of receiving it. So it's the man's faith, Jesus said, that really got his attention. It's his faith that made him stop. It's his faith, not just this pity over wanting to be merciful to some beggar on the side of the road. He was already being taken care of by his community, right? So get this. Jesus says this man's faith saved him. Jesus is on the main line. He's looking down into the eyes of that guy and you and me and saying, what do you want me to do for you? But here's why this isn't a prosperity doctrine. This isn't just name it and claim it, tell God what you want. He's obligated to do it. It's not that at all. God's not just interested in your physical comfort and your well-being. He's not just interested in whether you can see or not, or whether I get my hearing back in my left ear. He's not so wrapped up in those temporary things. And sometimes, because like I said before, sometimes those kinds of things can make our lives harder. If he gives you unlimited wealth, that's going to come with some trouble, right? It's going to come with some responsibility. If you think about that, like, okay, if you're wealthy, God puts a whole different standard on you. He says, you're supposed to multiply these gifts and use them for my purposes, and if you don't, you're going to have trouble from that. So if you think you could ask Jesus for unlimited money and that would make your whole life better, guess what? It wouldn't. You would have some stuff to deal with that. And this guy gets his eyesight back. He's got to go to work now, right? Which he's never had to do before. So what he's interested in is understanding that he wants to give us complete salvation, so that we need to align our wills with his. And Jesus modeled that for us too in Luke 22:42 when he says, hey, God, if you're willing, take this cup from me. Like he was getting ready to be crucified for our sins. He was getting ready to be publicly humiliated and mocked and beaten and had nails driven into his hands and a crown of thorns on his head, right? And he's praying in the garden, and he manages to find that place where he can say, but not my will be done, but thine. Luke 22:42. So the idea here is, if Jesus is on the main line and he's looking down into your eyes, the whole point of this little episode is this: him being willing to stop and listen to this man, to ask him what he wants, isn't isolated to that one story. In fact, it's all over the Bible. Check out Psalm 116 where David says, I love the Lord because he hears my voice and my prayer for mercy, because he bends down to listen. I will pray as long as I have breath. So friend, he's still bending down. He's still stopping on the road when we cry out for mercy. He did it for me when Mitch died. He's on the main line. So tell him what you want, but consider what you're asking for and keep in mind who you're asking it of. Now check this beautiful story out. Hannah in 1 Samuel 2:6-8. The setup is this. Hannah's been barren. She hasn't had a baby, but her husband with his other wife has had a whole bunch of them, so it's not the husband's issue. Hannah is infertile, and the other wife has been mocking her and shaming her for not having children. It's been an enemy to her, and she's brokenhearted. And she says to God, give me a son, and I tell you this, I'll give him back to you. When he's old enough, I'll present him to the temple and let him become a priest in your service. That was the promise that Hannah made to the Lord, and the Lord came through and gave her a son. And when it's time for her to bring him to the temple and present him to Eli to be raised in the temple in the service of the Lord, and she's going to trust her baby that was so hard for her to come by with the Lord, here's what she prays, starting in verse 6 of 1 Samuel chapter 2. She's reminding herself and reminding God who he is. She says this, the Lord gives both death and life. He brings down some good, he brings some down to the grave, but raises others up. The Lord makes some poor and others rich. He brings some down and lifts others up. He lifts the poor from the dust and the needy from the garbage dump. He sets them among princes, placing them in seats of honor. For all the earth is the Lord's, and he has set the world in order. She's reminding herself of who God is, but she's also reminding God of who he is. She's aligning her will to his. She's getting in that place that says, I really want to take my baby home, but I'm going to leave him here, and I'm just going to remember that you're worthy of that trust. You're going to elevate him. You're going to take care of him. You're going to take care of me, because that's who you are. She's aligning her will to his. She's getting in that not my will be done, but thine place before fulfilling her vow to leave her son in the care of Eli to become God's priest. She asked for a son. She desperately wanted a son, and she vowed to give him back to God. And here she is praying and entrusting God to care for her little boy. And she's reminding both of them who he is. So the question for you, my friend, is this. When Jesus stops, when he leans down, when he inclines his ear to you and says, hey, Brian, hey, Juliana, hey, Lola, hey, Lisa, hey, Will, hey, Lee, hey, Charles, what do you want me to do for you, friend? Remember, it's faith that turns his head, not pity. He already knows what you need, and he doesn't just want to open your eyes. He wants to give you the whole sozo, that whole ball of wax, the healing, the perfection of salvation. It sounds like a silly song at first, but it actually turns out to be a powerful sermon. Jesus on the main line. Tell him what you want. And it's a lesson for us all. He's right there. He's bending down to hear. He's picked up the phone and he's on the line and he says, hey, what do you want? What do you want me to do for you? So tell him. But pray first. Bring that broken heart or that worry or that fear or that baby that was so hard to come by. Bring it and put it at his feet and trust him with it and remind him who he is and remind yourself who he is and get your will lined up with his and call him up and get him on the main line and tell him what you want. But start today. Hey, thanks for listening. The Dr. Lee Warren podcast is listener supported. Check out patreon.podbean.com/Dr. Lee Warren, patreon.podbean.com/Dr. Lee Warren. Patrons and partners get free books, transcripts, special patron-only episodes, and more. And partners like you allow us to stay ad-free and keep growing. Please subscribe to the show so you automatically get new episodes. And please go to my website and sign up for my newsletter. If you like my podcast, you'll love my newsletter, wleewarrenmd.com/newsletter, wleewarrenmd.com/newsletter. It's a great community of people all over the world connected to one another, praying for one another. And it's just every Sunday, my best prescription for how you can change your mind and change your life. Always free every Sunday since 2014. wleewarrenmd.com/newsletter. Hey, the theme music for the show is Water into Wine by my good friend Tommy Walker. Check it out, TommyWalkerMinistries.org, TommyWalkerMinistries.org, and consider supporting Tommy and the great people out there changing the world through worship. And if you need prayer, don't forget about the prayer wall. It's always there for you, free, wleewarrenmd.com/prayer. People all over the world praying with and for each other, wleewarrenmd.com/prayer. Remember, friend, you can't change your life until you change your mind, and you have to start today. I'm Dr. Lee Warren. I'll talk to you soon. God bless you. Have a great day.